Hello, welcome to another fast and fun video. This is part 2 of my how to refresh your front suspension struts on my Subaru STI. First of all, apologies for you potentially seeing my naked legs because I'm in shorts. It's actually really mild. We're now between Christmas and the New Year, and so yeah, apologies for wearing shorts on camera. So this part 2 is really about stripping down the old unit and building up the new unit. And I want to show you the parts I've got, what I'm replacing and what I'm refurbing, what I'm going to use from the old car. So first of all, let me show you what I've bought in regard to the new parts. First of all is these. These are the top mounts. Bought these off eBay from IPC. IPC, what are they called? Import Parts Centre. So these are, I think, genuine top mounts for the STI. There they go. So that should be a like-for-like replacement there, with the main bearing sat in the middle. So got those were just over £100. I think about £108 for the pair. So I thought that was pretty good. Although they did take a while to arrive because they went out of stock actually pre-Christmas, but they came through. So I've got a pair of those brand new, and they actually come with the top caps as well, and new nuts as well, which obviously the new mount will, the new suspension struts will mount on. So that's the top mounts. Secondly, I was hunting for as close to OEM spec or Pro Drive spec springs. My old suspension struts, I found out, had the Pro Drive springs because they're red, and apparently that signifies a Pro Drive. So I've hunted around, and I ended up getting hold of a guy called Tupot on Scooby.net. He's given me a wealth of information about what dampers, springs, etc. And he's sourced these springs. They will ride apparently 10 millimeters lower than the Pro Drive, so very slightly lower in the ride height. But I got these from Tupot with matching bump stops here, both front and rear bump stops actually, because obviously I'll do the rear later on this year, but front and rear bump stops as well. These bump stops, incidentally, are located not on external to the damper, but actually inside the damper itself. So this video will show you how to replace those. That's following the instructions that Tupot gave me. So that's new springs and new bump stops. And then the final piece is the genuine KYB inverted struts. So these here are genuine KYB inverted struts off eBay, coming in from the States. I can't recall the exact cost. It was about $350, I think. So probably 100, 200 and something pound each. And it's these that actually the bump stop's located inside here. So I'm going to have to, well, later on this video, I'll show you how to replace the bump stop, because obviously the springs are slightly different. I'm going to make sure the bump stop matches those springs. So these are the KYB inverted dampers. They incidentally do come with the top nuts as well. So those top nuts do fit. They do come with the new nuts for the top. So they're all the new components. What I'm going to do now is the old strut. I'm going to show you how to strip the old strut And obviously I'm replacing this, the top mount, replacing the springs, replacing the damper itself. But things like this dust cover, this black plate and the seal, I'm probably just going to touch that up, refurb that and get that fitted onto the new ones. So most of the parts are going to be new, but there's a few bits that I want to take off this old one. So first of all, I'm going to show you how to strip this using some spring clamps and a bit of sort of effort, and we can have this hopefully stripped in 15-20 minutes. So let's go and I'll show you how to do this. Main thing with spring clamps, just make sure they're sat 180 degrees apart, because obviously there is a lot of tension that these springs are under. So here we go. Taking some of that pressure off those springs. The next activity to do now is just simply take off the plastic bung at the top, and you need a, I think it's a 17 mil, but you need it to be 17 mil right angled spanner, and then you need a number 6 hex drive, goes in with quite a large handle, because this, you've got to break the seal, and this is it will be under pressure and it will be quite tight to undo. So here's a bit of sort of brute strength to try to get it off. I'll leave that. So there we go. So that's the old top mount that's just going to go in the bin. That's the old nut as well, and the old plastic cap. And then now you should, that's the compressed washer that I'm going to reuse that, I think, unless I can source new ones. So I'll just clean that one up. And then that's the plate, which again I'm going to just wire brush that, make it nice and clean, and probably give it a spray actually, just to get it nice and clean looking. There's nothing wrong with that. And this rubber seal, again, that rubber seal looks in pretty good condition, so I'll make sure that, give that a clean, make sure that's nice, and again I'll reuse those. So those are the 3 parts I'm going to reuse. And then obviously the dust cap I'll reuse, because that looks absolutely fine, nothing wrong with that at all. And it's the old damper now that will go in the bin. And then the final thing to do now is these springs are still under compression, so go back to the 11 mil and then just take off some of this compression, and we're going to strip the actual new dampers themselves and replace the bump stops over, and then we'll come back and we'll assemble the struts ahead of fitting them back to the car. Okay, so next time you join me, we'll be in a garage with a vice replacing the bump stops. We're just going to change over the bump stops in these KYB inverted dampers. So this is how you do it. If you've got a vice, it just makes it that little bit easier because we're using the vice to do it. So here we go. First of all is we'll clamp down the damper, and then we're going to take off this bottom nut, or Jamie is. While Jamie's doing that, is that the new one? Yeah. This is the new bump stop. So this needs to match the spring, and because I've gone for slightly lowered springs, sort of 10 mil lower than the Pro Drive ones, this is why I've got to change the bump stop, which is obviously located inside the damper. So it's a relatively simple job. Just say vice just makes it that little bit easier. First of all, we take the nut off the bottom of the damper. There you go. So that's the nut off. And now what we're going to do, just takes a little bit of effort, we're going to slowly pull up on this and try to pull it off. Do you want me to hold the bottom of the damper then, like we did last time? Okay, that's good. Oh, is it this one that's hard? Yes. So that literally, you just got to be careful that you keep that seal there, and we'll come back to that when we have to reinstall it. Try to keep everything clean and tidy. And now here, this is the bump stop that we've got to try to get over this sort of flange or seal at the top. Here, you pull it off and I'll hold it.
Thanks.
What Jamie's just doing here, some of the grease is using just to put on this top flange to ease getting the bump stop over this flange at the top. And obviously once we've got it off and got the new one on, we have to clean it all up. This is the only bit that takes a little bit of pulling. So here we go.
Ready?
Yeah. Just twist it from side to side. It's quite hard, as you can see with Jamie's face.
Come on.
It's going, I think. Bloody hell, maybe it's not.
No.
Right, do you want me to have a go? Fucking hell.
Once it starts going,
It'll. So James just getting a rag. This just takes a lot of force. Gosh, I'm like, this one is tight, isn't it? Do you want to put more grease on it?
edit that bit out.
I think flipping. Just putting a bit more grease. This just shows you it's really, really tight sometimes to get off.
And they're obviously brand new.
Yeah, and these are brand new bump stops. There we go. That's it. It's the top part's gone off. There you go. It's nearly out now. Wiggle it around. And that's it. So that's the old new one. Obviously new one, but it's the wrong size. So that's off. So that in theory can go in the bin. New one now. You always put the bump stop in tapered side down, but this one here, as you can see, is tapered both sides. So I'm hoping it doesn't make any difference which way around it goes, because they both look identical. So this might be slightly easier. This is the best way of doing it. Bump stop, slight rotation. We've put the grease on the end until you feel it's gone through. And when it's gone through like that, just work it across. And there you go, you're through. Okay, now what we need to do is clean up this inner part, well, the damper as it were, get rid of all that grease. So it's nice and clean, especially the end piece as well, because that's where the nut's got to go back on, and that's got to be torque tightened. Now normally it's to 40 Newton meters, but because we've put slightly different springs and bump stops on, it's 33. We're doing this 33 Newton meters of torque, and what Jamie's just squirted on there is a little bit of brake cleaner, and that's just to remove all that excess, any excess grease on the end of the thread, to make sure it's nice and clean.
There we go.
There you go. And so I've just wiped any excess off. And now,
Reassembly.
you should simply just be able to very carefully, now the key here is this seal, to make sure you're nice and gentle as you slide this back in, because you want to, that seal's got to stay there. So just nice and simple, very little effort for this to go in. And then what we didn't show you, actually at the bottom there's two sort of flat flange parts, and you can, if I zoom in here, you might just be able to see it. There's two flat edges there, so you need to rotate the damper until it locates in position, and then you're ready. Now can you hear where it's hit the end, and now we can put it in the vise and put the nut back on up to probably, yeah, I think so. Right, so we're back now putting the strut together. first of all, dust cover, don't forget, put the dust cover on. Jamie's just used the spring clamps to clamp down the springs, and then we're just going to locate the springs. I need to really show you actually, but at the top of the damper, you'll see where the end of the spring locates. Now, sometimes you can see that some of the spring clamps are jamming on the side. Sometimes you've just got to play flipping, adjust them, and we might have to move them around actually, Jay, because that is actually really close to that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Probably.
Yeah, and we'll see. And sometimes you've got to adjust them as we go. But anyway, put the springs compressed over the top of the damper. Make sure it's seated in the right position. Then with your, I don't know what this is called, spring top mount plate, whatever it is, with its rubber insert, you need to make sure that the 3 holes here sit aligned to the 2 lower mounting brackets. So in theory, they're facing outboard of the car. So they need to sit, this is outboard, they're going to sit like that. So when we put that in there, Jamie's just going to put the rubber insert in there to make sure it all aligns as well.
It's a bit rolled.
Yeah, I haven't replaced these actually, but perhaps I could have done, but they're not expensive, I don't think. And if anybody wants any details, just drop me a comment and I can always send the information I've got. As I say, sometimes it's a little bit fiddly this because it catches the spring clamps. Okay, so squeeze that on there, that on there, that on there.
Nope.
Oh, fucking hell, what am I doing?
And top mount on the top.
Yep.
I don't know if we've got enough thread. Going in?
Yeah, do you want me to wang it in with a 17mm? Right, ready?
Yeah.
Is that going in? It's not going down yet. Is it? Oh, it is.
Damper's spinning.
Oh, damper's spinning, that's why.
Yeah, so now we need to hold it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so hold the centre.
Once it's in, don't
Yeah.
forget your counter. Yeah. Are you going to tighten it to me?
I can tighten it.
Go on. Okay.
Yeah, so nipping that.
And now,
The game of getting them on.
with the camera. So on the 2 lower mounting brackets here on the strut, they are obviously going to sit outboard, and you need to make sure that your 3 holes here, 1, 2 and 3, are all facing outboard, and they all are, so that looks all pretty well lined up.
So then all we need to do is torque the top nut.
And the torque of the top nut is 49 Newton meters. So we'll just quickly do that. And I'll just hold it with the 17mm right angle spanner, while Jamie obviously goes the opposite way. It's the spanner that turns, obviously, so Jamie would be, there you go.
Ready? Done.
Yeah, so that's 49 Newton meters. The new, strut, top mounts all done, springs all fitted, all ready now for assembly back on the car. Yippee! Thanks for watching. If you liked it, thumbs up, please subscribe, stay tuned. Part 3 will be coming up when I fit this back to the STI.